that stuff at your schools. So we went around and interviewed every faculty member one-on-one. We had 87 one-on-one interviews where we asked 3 questions. What do you know and understand about STEM? How do you see yourself fitting in? And what are your questions and concerns? Then we used a qualitative data analysis software called Atlas TI, and we pulled out major themes from these interviews. And as you see on the top left, one of the major themes was the acronym itself. And one of the greatest challenges for us to overcome was how do we help an English teacher or a theology teacher understand that they're still a part of this STEAM initiative even though they quote unquote don't have a letter in the acronym. So by accepting the acronym, that became its own challenge. We have a STEAM blog. You can find that on the Rockhurst website, and I included a link in the document. And we developed our own vision and mission statement. Our vision is to form innovative men with and for others who live and collaborate in an engaging learning environment ready to set their world on fire. Again, focusing on their world. And our mission is really, we serve the greater mission and vision of the school with an emphasis on connecting our students and our teachers and our entire community with the world. So that connection piece. How do we break out of our silo as a school? We define the A in STEAM as creativity and entrepreneurship. So first of all, we felt like just adding the A was like a small win to be more inclusive in nature. I talked about how the acronym can be exclusive, and inclusion is an important part of our ethos at Jesuit schools. So adding the A is sort of one step in that direction. But on top of that, I have a good friend who's a professional artist, and he's like, you know, Greg, I used to think that the greatest artists were the ones with the best ideas. I've completely changed my mind. I've realized that the best artists in the world, the greatest in the world, were the ones that could take an idea and turn it into a finished product. And for us, that's the entrepreneurship piece. You can have a great science idea, but unless you run the experiment, you don't learn anything. You know, so and entrepreneurship is another component that can engage students on a different level than just focusing on science or math or engineering. Another huge part of the STEAM initiative is that we want to create opportunities for everyone. Part of the reason I was asked to be the director, I think, was because when I was the chair of the math department, we went from 65 students taking the AP calculus exam to 132 students. And it's not like we enrolled like double the number of quote-unquote smart kids. So the big philosophy behind this STEAM initiative is how can we create opportunities and leverage our resources to help every single student at our school. And at the JSN colloquium last summer, I was really moved when Father Kasicki showed us that picture of Father Pedro Rupe, the former Superior General who coined that phrase, men and women with and for others. And in front of them is Father Mario Bergoglio, or now Pope Francis. And that idea of forming men and women for others is really central to what we're doing. Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great, and he talks about how the most successful companies in the world, you know, we're part of the company of Jesus, after all, and he focuses on what he calls the hedgehog concept. And so for us, I believe that as educational Ignatian educators, we're passionate about forming men and women with and for others. We can be the best of the world at. But historically, tuition has been our main economic driver. And I wanted to bring this up before I talk about individual programs, because when we talk about being a man for others, a huge question that came up at Rockhurst is how can we model for our students on the institutional level? So how can we be a school for others? And when we started speaking about this message, we started to engage a number of alumni, parents, and other constituents around the Kansas City area that really felt like Rockhurst could be a community asset that could help improve education across the entire community. And this idea of, are there ways that as an institution we can improve education across all of Kansas City as a way of modeling for our students about making your environment better? That became part of our mission as the STEAM initiative, and it created some opportunities for other benefactors to come in that were not engaged in the past. So I know that many of your schools are probably asking, like, how do we afford this? One of my suggestions is start doing some of these things, and you might be able to start engaging people who were not engaged in the past. So I want to start talking about specific programs we did, but first I was going to ask Tim to give a second poll right now. So Tim, if you could do that, just to get a quick snapshot on where different schools are at in terms of their STEM programming. If you could do that for a minute, I appreciate it.
We'll give the poll about 15, 20 more seconds. Okay.
All right, I'll go ahead and get started. So mostly due to our one-on-one interviews when we first got started, and that's interesting. It's great. Mostly due to those one-on-one interviews, we focused on these 8 key areas as low-hanging fruit that we could start making headway in right away. The 3 on the left are more internal in nature. The 2 in the middle are more outreach, getting out of our silos, the school for others component, and then the last 3 on the right are more long-term goals. But beyond these 8 programs, this year we started focusing on other agencies that have some basic standards. So if you're starting as a school, I would encourage you to look to these 2 resources. We just joined the NCSSS consortium, so it's a pretty neat. It's an acronym inside of an acronym, but they have the best STEM conference, in my opinion. I went to a lot of STEM stuff last year. They have a great STEM conference, especially because they have like science sections, engineering sections, math sections, but they also have administrator sessions. They have humanities sessions. They have health and wellness sessions for students. We brought a counselor with us, and she had an amazing experience. And then this March, in a few weeks, we will be, hopefully, knock on wood, getting our STEM certification from Advanced Ed. They're our accrediting agency, and they have one STEM standard with 11 indicators, and I will be referring to them as I talk about our programs. So those are 2 great resources to start with. We were fortunate enough to have Brother Guy speak with our students earlier this year, and Brother Guy is actually a graduate of University of Detroit High School in our Jesuit Schools network, and he is the director of the Vatican Observatory. And he told our students that while the science and math classes were important for his career, he learned to think analytically in his Latin class. When he was studying poetry in English literature class, he focused on his analytical ability. He learned to do layouts for his science research projects in his yearbook class, and he walked around to wave his arms. He learned to walk around and wave his arms when he's speaking, when he was in public speaking and taking theater and being involved in theater. So it was a great message to our students that we're not abandoning our liberal arts education here, even though we're paying attention to how the world is changing in ways that makes our STEM components of our education incredibly important. And then the ST 1.7 on the slide, that's one of the advanced ed indicators, and you can see how interdiscipline is important there. Also through our STEAM initiative, we've been able to engage other faculty members. On the left, we have a history teacher, and he got involved with a digital badge education platform called LRNG. It's a national organization. They might have a location in your city. And then we have a teacher on the right who had his students build toys for the homeless. And this was sort of inspired by this idea of school for others and how can we improve the community around us. So how can the students within the confines of his classroom walls benefit the community? But the robotics program has really been our flagship program. That's the first place we started. We did not have a robotics program until last year. Many of your schools probably already do. We were way behind. And we started one, and it's been great. We had a huge demand right from the beginning. The robotics team qualified for the World Championship in its inaugural year. They won the Rookie All-Star Award, and it was really, really great. And next year, we're going to partner with Project Lead the Way and pilot a Principles of Engineering course. So wish us luck there. It's going to be interesting to see what we can learn from Project Lead the Way. And they just partnered with AP College Board, so I'm interested to see how that relationship goes as well. And performance-based assessment is part of the Advanced Ed accreditation. And right here, you can see that our robotics students at the World Championship, they're actually thanking, this picture was taken to thank another school in Kansas City called Bishop Miege. It's another Catholic school, and they loaned us pneumatic wheels to compete in the World Championship. First, robotics has what's called a term called gracious professionalism, and that very much aligns with our values of being loving, being open to growth. And so our students are wearing their school mascot hats to say thank you for that. And if you want to learn more about performance-based assessment and how it applies to this world, I really recommend watching the film. Most Likely to Succeed. And we hosted this film. We had 300 people from our community watch it. It's 89 minutes. They recommend you have a panel of people to discuss afterwards. And it really does a great job of telling the story of how the world has changed in the last 20 years and what that means for education. We rebooted the computer science program. President Obama started a computer science for all initiative. He talked about it being the new basic skill. And when the advanced ed asked us about how do we support non-traditional students in STEM areas, our answer is we are teaching every single freshman how to code. We're also partnering with other agencies like MindDrive, which is a local agency that targets at-risk students, but we really want to create opportunities for all students. And I can answer questions about the computer science class if you want. Another thing about the STEAM initiative and what came out of the one-to-one interviews is that we learned that the modern language department really wanted a language lab. We've never had one before at Rockhurst, and so out of our STEAM initiative, it created opportunities for other departments to address desires and needs that they wanted to, and it really helped empower them to meet some of their own goals. Something I'm particularly passionate about are the active learning classrooms. And these active learning classrooms, I'll go to the next slide, is a way of being more student-centered instead of teacher-centered. We piloted 3 rooms last year with 12 teachers representing every department. And I believe that if we want to form our students to be more loving, to be more open to growth, we need them to interact with each other more, to talk to each other more. And these active learning classrooms are designed to engage students. They're on wheels, they pivot, there's 3 screens, so no matter where you're sitting, you can see a screen. There's boards along all the walls. And the 80% number of the students, and every metric we asked them about, it was over 80%. It was over 90% felt more comfortable. Over 80% said that they're getting better feedback from their teachers. There's over 90% said they're getting better feedback from each other. And these have been a huge success. And we're actually building a learning commons this summer. I know Brophy has an innovation commons. This is a project for this summer, and I'm really excited about this area in the bottom left. It's going to be a pitch space. And part of project-based learning is having students present their ideas. So we'll have a space in the building dedicated for that. I'm really, really excited about that. In terms of being a school for others, we partnered with St. Teresa's Academy, a Catholic all-girls school, and we started bringing in the Exeter Math Institute. I actually first learned about the Exeter Math Institute from David Sable. He's the math department chair at St. Ignatian in Cleveland, and this by far has been the best math professional development I've ever experienced. And with St. Teresa's, we've partnered, we've encouraged other public schools and charter schools and Catholic schools to send their teachers. In our first year, we had 45 teachers representing 23 different zip codes. And this is one specific example about how we can create a professional development opportunity to help education across the entire community, and that is evidence that we are being a community asset, which is really exciting to other nonprofit institutions that want to fund education but are not necessarily connected to Rockhurst. It also just helps our math teachers a lot. And then how can we start, I talked about breaking out of our silos as schools, getting our students outside our walls, but we really value community service, and we have our students go out into the world for community service, but we don't want commitment to justice as a grad being separated from intellectual competence. So how can we bring the STEM skills into our service initiatives? So here's a picture of students who were asked to build a database for a nonprofit agency that teaches English as a second language for refugees. And here's a picture. We have students volunteer at a STEAM studio every day, like 3 times a week after school, where they teach middle school students how to use robots and drones and 3D printers and programming. And sometimes our students don't even know how to do that, but they know more than what a 10-year-old would know or a 12-year-old would know. So they learn through teaching. And we were asked to present about this at the ISTE conference in Denver. So these are 3 of our students presenting at ISTE about service learning and combining STEM skills to the social justice needs. A lot of the premier STEM schools in the country have students doing authentic research projects. This was a long-term goal, but after the NCSSS conference last November in Boston, I had a science teacher who said, Greg, we can do this at Rockhurst. So next year we're launching a Fundamentals of Scientific Research class where students will solve their own authentic problem. They will ask their own authentic research question and spend the year solving and doing their own experiment. And that's a full year course. And next year we're also piloting a semester course we call Entrepreneurship for Others. Same idea, but instead of specifically science, identify a social justice issue or a community issue. Find a problem that can help your community. Where's a gap that you can fill? Develop a product or a service that can fill that gap. Pilot it, prototype it, get some market research, and then we'll have the EFO pitch night at the pitch space, and they'll pitch their idea to alumni and parents, and we'll get a judge of mock venture capitalist investors to test that out. It's going to be really, really fun. Also, we have students competing in a local Sense Ed IoT challenge, and that's also using Raspberry Pi technology. It's like a microprocessor with sensors to how do you solve a problem with this? So we have students developing a cane for the blind with sensors and things. And if you are not involved in the Ignatian Carbon Challenge, I think that's a really quick win to start engaging in these STEM things, engage your theology department. It's totally aligned with our mission, and it's a great way to build up STEM literacy through the Ignatian Solidarity Network. So if you're not involved with that, I definitely think that's a good thing to start getting involved with. We had a one-day entrepreneurship challenge, and we had 10 alumni decide to take a day off of work to come work with our students in teams to develop, to solve a challenge. And when we talk about getting our students to solve these real-world authentic problems, to pitch them, it's a great opportunity to engage alumni. And one of the advanced ed STEM indicators is how do we connect our students with adult world connections. There are a number of our alumni who want to be engaged, want to be a part of the educational experience with their students, and they're just not at a position in their life to donate money for the school. But they have a lot of other resources they can provide in terms of their experience, their time, their talents. And if we can leverage that, that's really valuable for our students. A long-term goal we have is the data science aspect. We haven't made much progress in that, but just want to point that out to everybody that it's something we are thinking about a lot on our end. And finally, internships. A long-term goal for us is to develop a more formal internship program for our students. We're kind of solving this piecemeal. We have individual students at different internships after school or on the weekends or over the summer. But one neat thing that I want to talk about is we're doing a construction project on campus. So we partner with that construction agency to do job site tours. They're doing classroom visits after school, and we have a dozen students learning about the construction project on school. And when we do the opening day celebrations, we'll have students like presenting about their project to that group of people on opening night. So the idea is how can we take everything that's happening in school and turn it into a learning experience? And then the logo on the left is a student from the graphics design class who developed a logo for me that I could use. And then the final thing I would like to say is I mentioned we partnered with St. Teresa's Academy. This was actually their idea, so I'll give them credit, but it was their idea to form a STEAM advisory board. So we got together other university, higher education institutions in our area, other companies in our area, architecture firms, entrepreneur firms, Lindhall Libraries, the Science Research Library, and we gather almost once a month to sort of discuss what we're doing, get advice from their feedback, and they're going to help us start developing this more formal internship program. And that's an example, according to the Advanced Ed STEM indicators, of how we as a school are partnering on an institutional level and not just relationship level between students and adults and things like that. Whew. So, deep breath. I think that's a quick overview of everything we've been doing the last 2 years, and I look forward to hearing questions or getting comments or concerns, and I'm opening up to everybody else. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Greg, thank you. It is a whirlwind tour of an astonishing amount of progress you've made. We do have some people who've raised some hands and have some questions. I'm going to unmute your microphones. If you continue to put questions in or raise a hand, we'll get to them. Jennifer Gaspar Santos, you had a couple questions. You muted yourself, but if you can unmute your microphone, we can hear you.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering, firstly, thank you. I thought that was excellent. It was a great synopsis of everything that you've been covering, and I'm really excited to see those resources and sharing them out with our teachers So thanks so much for putting this together. Great job. My first question was, how would you define the T in STEM? Oftentimes, I feel like it's been constrained to just thinking about computer science, but does T include multimedia arts, design arts, things like that, or is it just specifically to technology that creates new technology?
Right. Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for the compliments, and thank you for the question. So computer science is a great need at our school, so I think oftentimes we immediately go to computer science because that's the lowest hanging fruit, and I think a lot of us can have opportunities to grow in that area. But as I mentioned, we define T to how can we use technology to just leverage education in general. So we created a language lab for our modern language department. The active learning classrooms have 3 screens, so teachers had to learn how to use those 3 screens. We're already a one-to-one iPad school, so I think for us it is bigger. Like, how can we leverage technology to improve education across the board? And so we have a much broader definition of that. And like I also said, data science is a long-term goal. And data science, they say, is kind of a cross between a statistician and a computer scientist, but it's about taking data and analyzing data and things like that. So I think for us it's a lot broader than just computer science.
Jen, you want to ask a follow-up question? Does that answer that does technology go beyond CS?
No, that's great. Yeah, I've heard different definitions of it every time I ask somebody what their definition is, and so that's interesting that you take that perspective. So thank you.
Anyone else with questions that they have for Greg, the program, the idea, the initiative? Don't hesitate to raise a hand or submit a question. For those of you on East Coast time, you're rolling into the 5 o'clock hour. We want to be respectful of that. But we have time here for a few minutes to answer a few more questions.
Yeah. And I would go ahead and just add that part of the reason we have a broad definition of technology is because of our larger mission and vision as a school, and that has to come first. We're not a technology school, but if we can use technology to improve our ultimate goal of forming men for others, then that's when we want to use that technology.
Okay. These are the results of where people are at. We have a total of 22 people aboard right now, so it's nice. There's quite a balance there across those 4 serious descriptors. Any questions? Oh, hang on, Jim Lenaris. I'm gonna go ahead, Jim.
Hey, thanks so much, Greg. Can you hear me?
Yes, great.
So 2 questions. Didn't quite follow that PD piece your math teachers were doing, and could you also kind of tell me a little bit about Exeter?
Yeah, sure. The Phillips Exeter Academy is a high-profile boarding school, prep school in New Hampshire, and in the late 90s they threw out their textbooks and wrote problem sets. So it's a complete problem set curriculum, and it's all problem-based. And then they started going out to public schools around the country, specifically public schools in the beginning, trying to help improve education across the country. So David Sable at St. Ignatius Cleveland brought them in the Cleveland Catholic Diocese, hosted an Exeter Math Institute for Catholic school teachers, and we did the same thing. It's a 4-day workshop, 6 hours per day, so it's a 24-hour workshop. Of course, there's homework. And it's really exciting because the problems are challenging. You're doing it with other math teachers, so you're improving your math skills. You're learning that there are multiple ways of solving the same problem because people you respect, other math teachers, are solving them in different ways. You're also learning to check your ego aside because the problems are hard, so sometimes it's a good reminder as teachers to remember what it feels like as a math student to struggle. And that empathy piece was a huge component for our feedback. And I have a whole blog post about the Exeter Math Institute, which is on the handout. You can look for that as a reference. But a lot of teachers are saying, I forgot what it was like to struggle with math. And that was a huge, huge win for us. And it was just, ultimately, it's just great networking for other math teachers. I had to kick the math teachers out the last day because they wouldn't leave the building and it was locking. And I was like, you have to go. They're going to lock you inside. So it was just a really great experience for everybody.
Well, that's great. And those 40 teachers that you talked about who were spanning out around the area, were they in a service mode or a learning mode?
Oh, learning. Everyone's learning together. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So it's specifically about how do we, Exeter gives you all their problems. So you get a ton of math resources, but then Exeter challenges the teachers. It really challenges the traditional approach because they don't lecture at Exeter at all. It's all discussion and problem-based learning. So it really challenges the traditional educational model in terms of how we teach mathematics. And again, moving from a teacher-centered approach to a student-centered approach. And I don't think that we just take what Exeter does and do it at Jesuit schools, but there's a happy medium, and it's good for us to figure out how we can take those insights and apply it to our own context.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll just ask one more and let other people come in. Are you guys sort of at the forefront of plugging that into your math curriculum, or is there sort of a model school out there that you would say represents what this looks like when you fully integrated it?
Yeah, I think it looks different at every school because our contexts are so different. We have not implemented it in a full-scale redesign an entire class. St. Teresa's Academy down the street, they redid it for their entire sophomore geometry class, and have had incredible results. They gave the same final to those students, and the final grades went up by like 8% or something like that. They made a huge impact. We don't have anything to show from that yet, but there are examples.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
And one last thing, I guess, is we are hosting an Exeter Math Institute, 2 of them this summer in Kansas City. And I know Jason Beyer from Regis is going to host one in Denver a different week. And then David Sable is hosting one in Cleveland. So if anybody wants to travel to Cleveland or Kansas City or Denver, I know any of us would be welcome to have you guys there.
Good. Thank you, Jim. Andres. Go ahead, Andres.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Greg. My name is Andres Torres. I'm from Colegio San Ignacio in Puerto Rico. And my question is, first of all, great presentation. But the question is, do you feel that the program, the STEM program, STEAM program at Rockhurst, when did it actually start? Before the donation by the alumni was made, or after that? Because one of the things that we have found out is that to develop STEM, as fully as we would like, it requires, of course, resources, monetary resources. So, in your opinion, was that a big boost, or do you think you would be at the same place where you're at right now if you didn't have those monetary resources?
So it's a great question, and it's a really important, valuable question. Thanks for being on the webinar. I think that I'm speaking today because the donation helped us accelerate to get to where we are right now in 2 years. So we really started in 2 years. However, there were certain things that we were already doing. The robotics program was already in the works, and that probably would have started at the same time. The active learning classrooms is already in the works, but we probably would have piloted 1 classroom instead of 3 that first year. A lot of our schools have a pattern of making 1 decision per year, like we iterate at 1 decision per year. And when you have 3 people that don't have to teach as much, can really focus on this, we're able to make multiple iterations in a shorter amount of time. So I think there's a balance. I think I would not be speaking because we would have made progress, but not as much progress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andres. Nice to hear from you. Any final questions? Okay, we're going to move to Juan. I'll turn your microphone on. Go ahead. Go ahead, Juan. Juan, unmute your microphone, Juan. Meanwhile, while we're waiting, I'll let all of you know this, except for the first 2 minutes, has been recorded, and I will encapsulate it and make the video recording available to everybody along with a reprisal of Greg's resources document in an email probably early next week. It takes a while for GoToWebinar to compile the video. So just letting you know that, those of you who are still around, don't hesitate to ask questions. Oh, Juan is having a microphone issue. He's smart enough to put that in the question panel. Okay, anyone else with questions?
And I could just say just one more thing about resources. I don't think the answer is to wait around for an angel donor to come in and save your school or donate a huge gift. I really believe that it's important to start doing some of these things, and then it engages other alumni and other members of the community and gets them really excited about what we're doing, and then that continues this sort of income, for lack of a better word, because we are seeing that now, is that there are members, there are parents and alumni that are more engaged now than they've ever been because we started doing this stuff. Yeah. So while we were able to accelerate, we're finding that we're getting more and more resources from people we didn't even know were willing to do it because of just going out and doing it.
Yep. I will articulate Juan's question. Do you recommend starting with the STEAM program at all grade levels at the same time, or is it better to start grade by grade? Our school goes from 7th through 12th grade. Juan, if you want to clarify which school you're chiming in from, that would be great. Go ahead, Greg, in the meantime.
So philosophically, and I had that slide about education for everyone, not just the top 20%. So we had a real hard time sort of delegating just a part of our program to one student group. So we try to create opportunities for everyone. That being said, if you want to start by offering a programming class to every freshman, just do that, and you're starting with the freshman class. And that's what we did. Some sophomores wanted to take it, and we said, sure, you can take it. So we're not necessarily drawing a line, but we forced every freshman to take it. So I think there's a both-and solution there, depending on which programs excite you the most.
Juan is also from Puerto Rico, so it's good to know the electrons are getting all the way down there this afternoon. Thank you, Juan. Good question. Okay. Okay, we're at 45 minutes here. Greg and I will stay on for a little bit. Again, I'll be sending links to the recording. Thanks so much to Greg for taking time, and of course there was a lot of preparation time as well. Thanks to all of you who've connected from around the continent here. Be in touch as you need to be. I'm going to stop the recording here. We'll stay on for a few more minutes to answer a couple final questions as needed. Okay?
Please reach out to me, email me. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm also excited to learn about the great stuff happening at your schools too. So let's all work together on this because we're all on the same team. Thanks, Tim, for hosting.
Gotcha.